The plea from the stars. The galaxy was burning again, not with war but with silence. Terene 5, a beautiful blue-green world near the edge of the Orion Arm, was dying. Its twin suns were collapsing into madness, throwing storms of fire and radiation across the skies. Oceans boiled, forests turned to glass, and whole cities vanished in storms of lightning that never ended. For months, the people of Terene 5 sent distress calls, desperate pleas and messages of hope to the Galactic Council. They waited, believing someone would answer, but no one ever did. The council chambers on Zetheria Prime were filled with noise and pride, not mercy. Ambassadors of 100 species spoke in arrogance, discussing trade, politics, and power. When the plea from Terene 5 reached them again, they laughed. Another dying world, one alien whispered. Let nature clean itself. Another added coldly. They built too close to twin suns. They deserved their fate. No one offered ships. No one offered aid. And slowly the holographic signal from Terene 5 began to fade. Children cried in bunkers. Leaders screamed into dead radios, and families prayed to silent stars. Then something unexpected happened. An old human satellite, long forgotten, picked up the fading signal. It was weak, nearly lost, but the code was clear. Help us. Anyone. On Earth, deep beneath the crust in a place known only as Command Nexus 04, a human AI woke up. The lights flickered in the dark chamber as the machine's voice spoke softly. Signal origin confirmed. Terene 5, Class M world. Population collapse imminent. For a moment, the command center was silent. Then the humans responded the only way they knew. With action, across Earth's orbit, old war satellites turned toward the stars. Human fleets that had slept for decades began to power up. Engines of light flared in dry docks, and robotic builders assembled massive transports. Humans had been silent for generations, ever since the Great Withdrawal, when Earth left the Galactic Council. They had promised never to interfere again. But that promise was written in politics, not in hearts. Humanity had changed, but one truth never did. When someone asked for help, Earth answered. On the surface of Terene 5, hope had almost died. The sky was dark, and the air was poison. The Terene leaders stood in their bunker, watching their last communications officer try to fix the transmitter. Suddenly, the static cleared. A deep voice came through, calm, powerful, and unmistakably human. This is United Earth Command. It said, "We received your message." The Terenians froze, their faces pale and eyes wide. No one had heard that name for centuries. Some thought humans were extinct. Others believed they had ascended into legends. The officer stammered, "This is Terene 5. We request asylum. We are dying." The human voice replied without hesitation. "Request acknowledged. Shelter protocol active." There was a pause. Then the voice continued, "Prepare your skies. We are coming." The signal ended, replaced by a sharp tone that echoed through the bunker. Outside, the storms began to change color, lightning flashing blue instead of red. A strange energy filled the air, like thunder being bent and controlled. Hours passed, and then the first shadow appeared in orbit. A massive black shape blocked the sunlight, stretching across the clouds like a moving mountain. The Terenians looked up and gasped, their sensors reading impossible data. It was a human dreadnought, kilometers long, covered in glowing blue lines. Then another and another until the entire sky was filled with ships. Not an invasion fleet, but something older, stronger, quieter. A fleet that had seen war and peace and still carried both in its heart. Terene leaders ran outside, shouting and crying. They could hear deep sonic rumbles in the clouds. Dropships fell like stars, leaving white trails through the smoke. Each ship carried soldiers, engineers, medics, thousands of humans walking out into chaos without fear. They began scanning, building, securing the dying planet. One Terene child, holding a broken doll, looked up as a human soldier knelt beside her and gave her a mask. "Breathe easy," the soldier said softly. "You're safe now." The child smiled, for the first time in months. In orbit, the human admiral stood before a holographic map. His voice was calm, his orders clear. Deploy planetary shields, begin reconstruction zones, and prepare evacuation protocols. He looked out through the viewing glass at the burning world below. They begged for shelter, he whispered, and we will give them more than that. A junior officer hesitated. Sir, what about the council? The admiral smiled faintly. The council had their chance. Now it's our turn. Back in the Galactic Council chambers, alarms blared. Every species turned their gaze toward the outer systems. Reports flooded in. Human fleets mobilized. Old Earth warships reactivated. Energy spikes detected. The counselors stared at each other in disbelief. Humans. One whispered. They've returned. No one spoke after that. Only silence filled the hall. Every empire that once laughed at humanity now felt a quiet shiver of fear. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy remembered what it meant when humans moved. They did not send words, they sent worlds. They did not make promises, they made history. And somewhere, deep in the roaring skies of Terrene 5, a new legend was born. The legend of a species that answered cries for help with fleets, fire, and faith. The humans had come again, not as conquerors, but as guardians, and the stars themselves seemed to hold their breath, waiting to see what Earth would do next. The arrival of Earth's fleet. The next sunrise on Terrene 5 was not golden. It was iron gray for the first time in months. The radiation storm slowed, the air became still, and strange blue clouds shimmered in the high sky. Every scanner on the planet was locked on one direction: the heavens. There, in orbit, hundreds of massive shapes moved in perfect formation, silent and steady like a wall of living metal. The humans had arrived. The people of Terrene 5 gathered in their shattered cities, looking upward in disbelief. They saw streaks of light falling from the sky, landing crafts breaking through the clouds like comets. Each one carried the emblem of United Earth Command, glowing faintly through the storm. The aliens whispered among themselves, some in fear, others in hope. Did they come to save us, one asked, or to claim our world? No one knew, not yet. The first dropship landed near the capital, its engines shaking the ground. When the dust cleared, tall armored figures stepped out. Their suits were dark gray with silver edges, their helmets reflecting the burning sky. They moved with calm purpose, not aggression. The Terrene guards raised their weapons in panic, but the human commander simply raised a hand. Stand down, he said through the translator, his voice deep and firm. We are not your enemy. Behind him, massive cargo ships unfolded into field bases. Machines rolled out, builders, drones, scanners, medical bots, and working with quiet precision. Within minutes, the area around the capital began to change. Protective domes rose from the ground, filtering the toxic air. Water was purified, radiation was absorbed, and for the first time in months, clean air filled the lungs of the Terrene survivors. Children laughed as they removed their masks, feeling oxygen again. The Terrene leaders were escorted to the human base. Inside the command tent, a tall woman waited, Admiral Helena Voss. Her eyes were sharp, her tone controlled. You asked for shelter, she said. And Earth responded. The alien governor trembled. We only wanted safety. Not this army, the admiral smiled faintly. Safety requires soldiers, peace requires builders. And survival, she paused, sometimes requires both. Outside, human engineers worked nonstop. They scanned the crust for stable ground, built shield generators, and began planting food domes. Each worker moved like part of one great organism. They didn't complain, they didn't rest much, they just built. One Terrene scientist asked a human technician, "Why do you help us?" The technician looked up from his device and said simply, "Because someone must." In orbit, the rest of the fleet was still arriving. Dozens of warships took position above the planet, not to attack, but to defend. They formed a shining web of protection, a planetary shield grid. From the ground, it looked like stars weaving together. The humans called it Project Havenline. It was designed to protect any world under Earth's care, no matter who lived there. But not everyone welcomed their arrival. Some Terrene generals feared losing control. They sent secret messages to the Galactic Council. Reporting human interference, the Council responded coldly. Observe. Do not resist yet. But deep inside, the old powers were nervous. Humanity had vanished from galactic politics for centuries. Now they were back, stronger, quieter, more united than ever. At night, alien citizens watched from the rooftops as human repair drones moved across the skyline. They repaired bridges, restored power, and projected light symbols in the air. Symbols of hope, unity, and survival. Some aliens fell to their knees, praying, thinking these humans were angels. Others whispered darker words. Machines of war disguised as saviors. But no one could deny the truth. Where the humans walked, destruction turned into life again. In the orbiting dreadnought UEC Ares, Admiral Voss looked at the planetary report. Radiation levels dropping, an officer said. Oxygen stable. Reconstruction at 40%. Voss nodded slowly, then asked, any council response? None, Admiral, the officer replied. But long-range sensors show ships moving near the border. The Admiral's eyes narrowed. They're watching us, she said quietly. Let them, down below at the main landing site. A young human engineer named Mason stood beside a damaged alien reactor. He was guiding a group of Terrene technicians, showing them how to rebuild it safely. You don't just fix machines, he told them. You rebuild faith. The aliens stared at him, not understanding the words completely. But they could feel the meaning. Humans didn't see them as weak. They saw them as partners. By the end of the week, the first safe zones were established. Massive domes covered entire cities. Powered by human reactors, rain returned. Crops began to grow again. Life was coming back, piece by piece, and still, the humans kept building. But the Admiral knew this was only the beginning. She stood at the viewport and whispered to herself, if we can save one world, we can save them all. In the deep void above, one of the dreadnoughts began transmitting a hidden signal to Earth. The message was short, only a few words. Terrene 5 secured, Phase 2 ready, and far away, in the silent command stations under Earth's crust, new lights began to glow. More fleets would soon awaken. More worlds would soon see the arrival of humans. The galaxy just didn't know it yet, for now, Terrene 5 slept under a sky filled with human stars, and the people who once begged for shelter finally closed their eyes in peace, not realizing that humanity had already started something far greater than rescue. They had begun a new age, the age of builders and defenders, and every empire watching from afar could feel it. Humanity had returned not to conquer, but to remind the galaxy what true power looked like. The builders of Earth Terrene 5 was no longer a dying planet. It had become a world reborn under human hands, where storms once screamed and lightning ripped the sky apart. Now silver towers rose toward the clouds. Human engineers worked day and night, turning ash into steel and ruins into cities. The aliens watched in awe, whispering among themselves. No other species built like humans. No other worked with such quiet fury. The humans never stopped. Their ships hovered above the surface like guardians, dropping machines that dug deep into the soil. They melted broken roads and reshaped them with glowing blue light. They didn't just repair, they transformed. Even the weather began to change under their control. Cloud layers thickened, rain returned, and the air smelled like life again. To the Terrenians it looked like magic, but to the humans it was only engineering. Their machines hummed with old Earth technology. Stable, reliable, and efficient. Each dome they built became a self-sustaining city, with power drawn directly from geothermal vents. When asked how they could build so fast, the human commander simply said, "We practiced on worse worlds." In the capital zone, Admiral Helena Voss watched as her soldiers worked with alien citizens. She noticed something rare: humans and aliens laughing together, rebuilding together. She smiled faintly, then turned to her aide. "Mark this day," she said. "Terrene 5 is alive again." But deep down she knew this mission was more than rescue. It was part of something far larger, a plan hidden in layers of classified code, known only to Earth's highest command. Meanwhile, deep under the crust of Terrene 5, human machines were doing something else buried far below the new cities. Giant black pylons were being placed into the planet's core lines. Each pylon pulsed with soft red light, connecting with others across the globe. The Terrene engineers asked what these were for. The humans gave vague answers. Planetary stabilization or magnetic field correction. But one Terrene scientist named Kelra suspected more. She hacked into a human data feed and saw a name repeated in the encrypted logs. Arc Red Dawn. Kelra didn't understand the full meaning, but she felt the weight of those words. Humans were not just saving one planet. They were building something permanent, something strategic. Her report reached the alien governor, who quietly confronted Admiral Voss. "Your people are doing more than helping," he said nervously. "You're preparing for something." The admiral didn't deny it. She simply looked at him and replied, "Preparation is the price of survival." Above them, in the orbiting dreadnought UEC Ares, command AI cores monitored hundreds of worlds. Some of the signals were weak, others gone entirely. Every one of them marked a dying planet, species begging for aid that never came. Until now, Earth had chosen to act, silently, efficiently, without asking permission. For every world the Council ignored, humans would build a new shelter. For every cry unheard, they would answer. And Terene 5 was just the first on the surface. The Tyrrhenians began to see the difference between pity and purpose. Other species had offered pity, but only humans offered structure, order, and vision. They didn't just give food or medicine, they gave tools. Knowledge and self-respect, a Terene worker once said. Humans don't just fix our homes, they fix our hope. And soon, people who once feared them started following them. They worked beside human soldiers, mimicking their discipline and learning their ways. It wasn't long before small Tyrrhene units began calling themselves Builders of Dawn, copying Earth's emblem and painting it on their armor. Still, unease grew among the old Terene Council. They gathered secretly, whispering that humans were planting power cores, fortifying cities and creating military infrastructure. "Maybe they plan to rule us," one said. "Maybe they're building fortresses," another replied. But none dared challenge them openly because every time they looked outside, they saw children playing again, families smiling again, and skies clear for the first time in years. If this was conquest, it was the kindest the galaxy had ever seen. One night, Kelra saw something from her lab window. In the distance near the northern horizon, a massive beam of light shot into the sky. It split into 6 glowing lines, each connecting to one of the black pylons buried around the planet. For a moment, the air shimmered and the auroras danced across the entire hemisphere. She realized it wasn't a weapon, it was a shield, a planetary barrier strong enough to withstand a supernova. Then came the human message, broadcast on every frequency. "This world is under Earth's protection," the voice said. "Any act of hostility will be treated as an attack on humanity itself." The Galactic Council received the message with shock. Empires that once mocked humans now felt the echo of their return. It wasn't just the words, it was the calm confidence behind them. The kind that comes from power no one can measure. Admiral Voss stood on the bridge of her ship. Watching the holographic projection of Terene 5, her expression was cold but proud. She whispered to herself, "1 world secured, 6 more to go." Her second officer turned to her. "Ma'am, the Council won't like this." Voss gave a faint smile. "They never do," she said, "but they'll live. Thanks to us." In the cities below, the humans finally rested for a few hours. The Tyrrhenians looked up at the glowing barrier in the sky and felt something they hadn't felt in generations. True safety. The storms were gone, the fear had faded, and hope had returned. But far beyond that quiet peace, deep in the command networks of Earth, more worlds had already been marked for rescue. The builders of Earth were just beginning their work, and somewhere among the stars, the galaxy began to whisper again, "Humanity has returned." The unseen purpose Terene 5 was quiet now. The storms were gone, the cities stood strong, and the people had begun to live again. But beneath that peace, under the new towers and shining domes, something deeper was moving. The humans were not only rebuilding, they were preparing, and only a few had begun to notice. Dr. Kelra, the Terene scientist, had been watching for weeks. She saw the construction sites that no one was allowed to enter. She noticed the drones that carried heavy metal crates into the deep tunnels, the tunnels that went far below any map her people had access to. Each night she logged data quietly, tracking the movements of human machines, and one night, she found it, a coded transmission sent from the surface straight into space. It was a short message repeating endlessly, "Arc Red Dawn."
Stage 2 operational. Her heart raced.
She had heard the term before but never understood it. Now she felt the weight of it pressing on her mind. Something massive was being built, and she feared it wasn't just for defense. She took her data drive and went to meet the alien governor. But when she arrived, she found the human commander already there. Admiral Voss, calm as always, sitting in silence across from the governor's desk. Kelra froze, unsure if she should speak. Voss turned toward her, her blue eyes steady. "You've seen something," the admiral said quietly. "Something you don't understand." Kelra swallowed hard. "You're building something under our planet, aren't you?" Voss leaned back. "We're building survival," she said, her voice steady. "Not just for you, for all." The governor frowned. "You mean for other species?" The admiral nodded. "For anyone the galaxy abandoned." There was silence for a long moment. Then Kelra asked softly, "What is Arc Red Dawn?" The admiral's expression didn't change, but her tone grew heavier. "It's not a project," she said. "It's a promise." She stood and walked toward the window, looking out at the glowing shield that protected the city. Long ago, when the Council turned its back on dying worlds, humanity swore we would never do the same. She pointed to the stars. That's what Arc Red Dawn means, a dawn that never fades even in the darkest night. Still, there was more, something Voss didn't say. Later that night, Kelra followed a group of human transports leaving the city. They moved toward the northern pole, a restricted zone guarded by drones. She used a stealth field to follow them through the snow. There she saw it, a massive underground facility. Glowing red from within, human engineers worked around a giant structure. It was not a weapon, not a reactor, it was a gate, a circular construct humming with power, large enough to fit an entire ship. Its center glowed with blue energy like a captured star. Kelra gasped quietly. The gate pulsed once, and she saw images flicker across its surface. Worlds she had never seen before. Desert planets, frozen moons, dying stars, and strange alien ruins. Then a faint human voice echoed from within the structure. "Testing dimensional coordinates, arc sequence aligned." Kelra realized the truth. The humans were not just saving planets, they were connecting them. They were building a network of safe worlds, a chain of sanctuaries linked by these gates, a new civilization under Earth's protection, hidden from the Council's reach. She barely escaped the zone before the drones detected her. Her heart raced as she returned to the city. Everywhere she looked, humans were still building. Calm, disciplined, tireless, but now she understood why. They weren't just rebuilding a world. They were preparing a refuge for countless others. A new galactic foundation, forged not by politics but by necessity. That night, she wrote her report and sent it secretly to the Galactic Council. She thought they would see it as hope, but she was wrong. The Council read her words and saw only danger. They whispered among themselves, "If humans unite the refugees, if they link worlds under their command, no empire will ever challenge them again." Within hours, fleets began mobilizing, ships armed with old grudges and fear. Heading toward Terrene 5 back on the surface, Admiral Voss stood on the roof of the command dome staring at the stars. Her communication officer approached. "Admiral, we've detected Council fleets moving." Voss nodded. "Let them come," she said quietly. "They can't stop what's already begun." The officer hesitated. "Shall we prepare defenses?" Voss smiled faintly. "Always," she replied. "But remember, our mission is not war. It's preservation." In orbit, the dreadnoughts began to reposition, forming a silent wall around the planet. The shield generators pulsed brighter. The skies glowed red, and deep below the gate continued to hum, its power growing stronger as more energy flowed into it. It was almost ready if the fleets attacked. Earth could move thousands of refugees instantly across systems. The first true human-made arc was nearly complete. Kelra stood at her window that night, staring at the aurora shimmering above the shield. She no longer knew what to feel. Fear, awe, or admiration. The humans had come as saviors, but now they stood as something greater, builders of a future the galaxy wasn't ready to accept. As thunder rolled in the distance, she whispered to herself, "They came to give us shelter," she said, "but maybe they're building a new home for everyone." Above her, the human fleet glowed like a crown of light, and across the stars, whispers spread again. "The humans are not rescuing worlds," they said. "They're reshaping the galaxy." The Council's fear. The message spread through the galaxy like wildfire. Terrene 5 is under human protection. No one had heard those words for centuries, and now they echoed through every channel, every frequency, every empire's heart. The Galactic Council gathered in emergency session, their grand chamber filled with the hum of fear. Thousands of holographic faces flickered in the air. Leaders, generals, merchants, and spies, all demanding answers. "What are they doing?" shouted one delegate. "They're rebuilding planets," answered another. "But on whose authority?" An elder from the Vec Consortium slammed his claws on the table. "Humanity left the Council ages ago. They have no right to command worlds." Silence followed his words. Heavy and cold, everyone remembered why humans left. And what happened the last time someone tried to control them. A trembling aide projected the latest reports. Images filled the hall. Human fleets above dying worlds, building domes, healing atmospheres, constructing strange glowing gates. "This is not aid," a voice hissed. "This is expansion." The Council's supreme speaker, a tall insectoid being named Threxval, leaned forward. "Expansion or salvation," he said slowly. "The result is the same, and they are gathering power." Behind the political walls, whispers turned into fear. Old memories resurfaced. The Human Council War, the siege of Epsilon Prime, the single Terran dreadnought that broke 3 empires in a week. Humans had vanished afterward, claiming isolation and peace. But no one ever believed they simply stopped preparing. Now the proof was orbiting Terrene 5, living, breathing, unstoppable. In the Council war room, admirals argued in panic. "If they complete the ARC network, they'll control all travel between refugee systems," said one. "They'll have the loyalty of 1,000 dying world," said another. "Today it's Terrene 5, whispered Threxval. "Tomorrow it's the entire outer rim." At last he made his decision, his voice trembling slightly even through his translator. "Deploy observation fleets then. Prepare for confrontation across the galaxy." War engines awoke. Ships long stored in orbital vaults powered up, energy signatures flickering like ghosts of the past. Massive carriers painted with the Council's crest began to move toward the border sectors. News channels exploded with rumors. Humanity building hidden empire. Earth violates Council treaty. Unknown weapon on Terrene 5. But none of them knew the truth. The humans were already watching. In the orbit of Terrene 5, Admiral Helena Voss stood on the command deck of UEC Ares. She read the encrypted reports without surprise. "The Council is mobilizing," said her aide. "I know," she replied calmly. "They always feared what they couldn't understand." The aide hesitated. "Will we fight them?" Voss looked through the viewing window, where the planet glowed peacefully beneath its new shield. "We fight only if we must," she said, "but we will never retreat." Down below, the Terrenians had begun to live again. Markets reopened, schools rebuilt. Laughter returned to the streets. They called the humans the builders, and hung banners of both species together. But deep inside, Voss knew the peace was temporary. War was coming, and not from chaos and from pride that night. A secret Council scout ship slipped into Terrene orbit. Its cloaked sensors scanned the surface, recording the shield grid and the massive energy readings from the northern gate. "Unregistered weapon detected," reported the pilot. Before he could transmit the data, a human drone appeared beside his ship. Silent as death, the drone's lights turned red. A human voice came through his calm and emotionless, unidentified vessel. "This is United Earth Command territory. Disengage or be removed." The pilot froze. His sensors showed hundreds of hidden drones locking onto him. He jumped to hyperspace instantly, leaving behind only a trail of static. When the recording reached the Council, panic followed. "They have stealth fleets," one shouted. "They've weaponized the refugee zones," cried another. Threxval raised his clawed hands for silence. "We cannot allow them to dominate the void again," he said. "Assemble the Grand Armada." Across 12 sectors, the largest fleet in galactic history began to form. Over 30,000 warships, hundreds of dreadnoughts, and supercarriers, all pointed toward Terrene 5. The Council called it Operation Cleansing Sky. They told the public it was a peace enforcement, but everyone knew the truth. It was fear wearing the mask of order. On Terrene 5, Admiral Voss received the incoming scans. Her officer stared at the readings, speechless. "So many ships," one whispered. "It's half the galaxy." Voss didn't flinch. "Then half the galaxy will see what Earth stands for." She pressed her command badge. "Activate Phase 3, full planetary defense grid." All across the surface, the hidden pylons glowed crimson, linking together with beams of blue light. The shield around the planet expanded, growing brighter until it looked like a small star in the dark. Every citizen on Terrene 5 stopped and looked up at the sky. Even children could see it, the bright shimmering field protecting their world. It was beautiful, almost divine, and high above them. Human fleets aligned into perfect formation. The dreadnoughts formed a circle, their hulls glinting like blades under starlight. From her command chair, Voss whispered to herself, "They think they're coming to destroy us," she said quietly. "But they're about to witness why humanity never falls." Her aide turned toward her, voice trembling. "Do we have orders from Earth?" The Admiral looked at the glowing hologram of her home world. Distant, silent, watching, she smiled faintly. "Earth doesn't give orders anymore," she said. "It trusts its children to act." In that moment, the Council Armada entered the system, thousands of ships appearing out of warp, their lights filling the black like a second sunrise. Terrene 5's orbit shimmered under the pressure of energy fields and locked weapons. But the humans didn't move. They held their line, quiet, ready, unyielding. Everywhere across the stars, millions watched the live transmission. The galaxy was holding its breath. Would humanity bow, or would history repeat itself? The screen flickered, showing Admiral Voss standing before the holographic projection of the Council fleet. Her words were steady, simple, and unforgettable. "You came to destroy shelters," she said. "We came to build them. Let's see which one survives the fire." The coming storm. The void around Terrene 5 was quiet, too quiet. The stars themselves seemed to dim as the Council Armada arrived. 30,000 ships formed a shimmering line across the edge of the system. Carriers, cruisers, destroyers, all armed and waiting. Their engines glowed like angry suns, casting shadows over the once peaceful world below. In the orbit of Terrene 5, the human fleet remained still. Only 300 ships, dwarfed by the endless formation of the enemy. But every human vessel carried the discipline of 1,000 years of silence. Their hulls gleamed black, their engines pulsed softly. Each dreadnought marked with the insignia of United Earth Command, a blue planet surrounded by silver wings. They looked small, outnumbered, hopeless, and yet there was something in the way they stood, something that made the galaxy hesitate. Admiral Helena Voss watched the tactical map in silence. Her officers waited for her command. The comms officer whispered, "Council fleet is demanding our surrender." Voss did not look away from the screen. She simply said, "They always do that before they run." Her voice was calm, too calm. She knew the Council had never seen what Earth had become. Not since the withdrawal, not since the old wars. On the planet's surface, the Terrenians crowded the domes. They could see the Council fleet like streaks of light across the sky. Fear spread through the cities. Would the humans abandon them now? Would they flee and leave Terrene 5 to burn again? But when they looked up, they saw the massive human dreadnoughts holding their line, unmoving, unafraid. The Council speaker's voice echoed through the comms. "This world belongs to the Galactic Council," it said. "Stand down, humans, and hand over your command." Voss answered quietly. "You left them to die, we didn't." Then she leaned forward. "Transmit this message to every ship in the fleet." Her aide nodded and broadcast her words across the void. "This is Admiral Helena Voss of Earth," she said. "You came to end what we began, but we don't destroy, we protect. And we will protect this world until the stars grow cold." Silence followed. Then the Council fleet opened fire. The first wave hit the human shield grid. Thousands of plasma bolts struck the atmosphere, lighting it with blinding fire, but the shield held. The red glow around Terrene 5 flared brighter, rippling like a living flame on the ground. The people gasped as the sky turned into a curtain of blue light. The storm had begun. In orbit, human dreadnoughts launched fighter swarms. Tiny dots of silver streaked across the darkness, weaving between enemy fire. Each fighter was unmanned, guided by AIs older than most empires. They moved like birds in perfect coordination, striking engines, shields, and weapons with surgical precision. The Council ships tried to respond, but their targeting systems couldn't lock fast enough. "The first 100 vessels went dark in minutes, Phase 2, ordered Voss. A deep vibration rolled through the human flagship. Massive rail cannons unfolded along the hulls of the dreadnoughts, glowing white with energy. Then, without warning, the fleet fired as one. The soundless shockwave rippled through space. The first salvo tore through the enemy line, cutting 3 Council cruisers clean in half. For every human shot, a dozen ships vanished into debris. Still, the council pressed on. Their armada swarmed forward, firing relentlessly energy beams, torpedoes, plasma arcs. The void became a storm of chaos. Human ships took hits, hulls breaking, but none retreated. Even the crippled ones used their last power to ram the enemy or shield others. Voss stood unshaken, her eyes reflecting the firestorm. "Maintain formation," she said. "They fight with numbers. We fight with purpose." On the surface, the Tyrrhenians saw streaks of light crossing the heavens. It looked like stars were falling. Children held their parents' hands, whispering prayers to the builders. One elder said softly, "They fight for us," and tears fell down his face. No one had ever fought for them before. Halfway through the battle, the council released their ultimate weapon, the Titan of Velan, a supercarrier the size of a moon. Its arrival blacked out the stars, its cannons capable of vaporizing continents. The council commander announced proudly, "Let them witness our supremacy." But Voss was already ready. "Bring it down," she said calmly on her command. The human fleet activated Project Skyhammer. Hundreds of satellites hidden around the planet linked together. Energy flowed between them, building to a blinding point. Then a single beam of concentrated power shot upward from Terrene 5's North Pole. It hit the Titan dead center. The explosion was silent, the light brighter than a sunrise. When it faded, the Titan was gone. Only fragments of molten metal drifted through the void. The entire council fleet froze, their comms silent. They had just witnessed the impossible. Voss gave her next order quietly. "Send the message," she said. Her voice echoed across every frequency in the system. "This world is protected. Leave now, and we will not pursue. Continue your assault, and we will rebuild on your graves." One by one, the council ships began to retreat. Some turned without orders, others fled in panic within hours. The mighty armada had vanished into the black. The humans did not chase them. They simply held position. Their victory was not a roar. It was silence. The kind of silence that follows inevitability. On the planet below, the people of Terrene 5 wept and cheered. They watched the skies clear again. Knowing what had just happened, the galaxy had sent its wrath. And humanity had answered with restraint, precision, and power. The builders had proven themselves not just saviors, but guardians, and somewhere in the shadows of the void, whispers began once more. "The humans didn't win," they said softly. "They reminded us why no one ever truly defeats them." Back aboard the flagship, Voss stood alone, staring into the fading light of battle. Her aide asked quietly, "Was it worth it?" Voss didn't answer for a moment, then whispered, "Every life saved is worth every star burned." She turned to her crew. "Begin recovery, rebuild what they destroyed. The work never ends." As the human fleet returned to their silent formation, Terrene 5 glowed below them, alive, safe and stronger than ever. The storm was over. But everyone knew the truth. This was only the first war of the new dawn, and in the hearts of every survivor echoed one unshakable thought. Humanity doesn't come to conquer. They come to build what others destroyed. The builders and the defenders. The battle for Terrene 5 had ended. The sky that once burned with plasma and fire was now calm again. Only the soft glow of the human shield grid shimmered above the clouds. Like a second sunrise born from steel and courage, the Council Armada had fled, leaving behind silence, debris, and disbelief. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy had watched the humans fight, and they had remembered what that meant on the surface. The Tyrrhenians gathered in the central plaza. They looked up at the glowing human fleet that still circled above their world. Some wept, others bowed, and many simply stood in stunned quiet. They had begged for shelter, and the universe had laughed at them. But humanity had answered, not with pity, but with protection, not with words, but with will. In the heart of the city, Admiral Helena Voss stood before the alien governor. He looked at her with trembling gratitude. "You saved us," he said softly. "We can never repay this." Voss shook her head. "You don't need to repay anything," she replied. "You just have to live and help others when it's your turn." The governor nodded, tears in his eyes. "I understand now," he said. "You don't just build walls, you build people." Outside, the human engineers and soldiers worked without pause. They didn't celebrate victory, they rebuilt what was broken. Every fallen building was raised again. Every scar of war was filled with life. The same drones that carried weapons now carried seedlings. The same ships that rained fire now dropped supplies and medicine. The battlefield had become a workshop of rebirth. Across the galaxy, transmissions poured in. From distant worlds ravaged by famine, from planets abandoned by the Council, from species too small to matter in politics, they sent messages, weak and fading, all carrying the same plea, help us. And Earth heard them all. In the command center aboard the dreadnought UEC Ares, Voss received the report, her second officer said quietly. Request from 27 systems, Admiral. All asking for aid. Voss looked out at the stars, the light of them reflecting in her eyes. Send the fleets, she said simply. The builders don't stop. Back on Earth, deep within Command Nexus Air 4, the ancient human AI woke again. Its voice echoed in the quiet halls. Project Arc Red Dawn expanding, it announced. Phase 4 initialized. Across hidden shipyards and orbital docks, new vessels powered up, larger, stronger, faster. Earth had been waiting for this moment, not to conquer, but to rise. To fulfill a promise made long ago, that no cry for help would ever go unanswered again. As months passed, more human fleets spread across the void. Each carried soldiers, builders, medics, and hope. They landed on burned worlds, on ruined colonies, on forgotten moons. Where the galaxy saw ruins, humans saw foundations. Where others saw lost causes, humans saw beginnings in time. Other species began to follow their example. Tyrrhenians sent their first volunteer teams to help rebuild other refugee worlds. Former enemies reached out, hesitant but sincere, and slowly, what began as one act of mercy turned into something greater. A movement, a union of those who had once been abandoned. They called it the Haven Pact, and at its heart stood humanity. The defenders who built instead of ruled. The Galactic Council tried to ignore it. They sent warnings. They tried to claim authority again. But their power was fading every day. More planets joined the Haven Pact, not because they were forced, but because they trusted the builders. The humans never demanded loyalty, they earned it. One night, under the glowing skies of Terrene 5, Dr. Kelra stood on a newly built observation tower. She watched human and Terrene children playing together near the old memorial site. She smiled softly, remembering how it all began. A desperate signal. A dying world, a simple plea for help. And then she whispered, they sent soldiers, engineers and warships, but what they truly sent was hope. Above her, the human fleet began to move again. Their engines lighting up the night, each ship carried the same emblem. The blue earth surrounded by silver wings. To the Tyrrhenians, it no longer meant war. It meant protection, purpose, and promise. As the ships rose into the stars, the crowd gathered below cheered. Children waved as if saying goodbye to legends. Admiral Voss watched the world fade behind her ship's viewport. Her officer asked, "Where to next, ma'am?" Voss smiled faintly. "Anywhere a signal calls us," she said. She touched the console beside her, opening a new transmission link. "This is Admiral Helena Voss of the United Earth Command," she said, her voice clear and calm. "To every world that has been forgotten, to every species that has been abandoned, hold on, we are coming." Across the galaxy, that message spread like light through darkness. It reached the corners of broken empires, dying stars, and shattered hearts. And everywhere it was heard, hope was born again. Because the builders of Earth had risen once more. They were no longer just soldiers or saviors. They were the shield between chaos and life, the fire that guided the lost. And the voice that echoed across the endless night was simple and eternal. Shelter is sacred. And no one asks humanity for safety twice because we never leave. The screen fades to black. The stars pulse softly and one final whisper fills the silence. They begged humanity for shelter and humanity built them a future.